In the steel town of Gary, Indiana, a bitter wind carried the smell of iron and coal. It was August 29th, 1958, and the seventh child of Joseph and Catherine Jackson was born, a boy named Michael Joseph. Jackson, few could have guessed that this child, cradled in a modest home on Jackson Street, would one day rewrite the history of music. The Jackson household was a mix of discipline and devotion. Joseph, a former boxer and steel worker, ruled the home with strict authority. Catherine, a devout Jehovah's Witness, instilled faith and patience. Music was not a pastime here, it was survival. By the mid-1960s, Joseph noticed Michael's uncanny voice, a voice that seemed too mature, too emotional for a child. Alongside his older brothers Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon, Michael was drafted into what would become the Jackson 5. The living room became their first stage. The wooden floorboards their first audience. They played wherever they could, talent shows, school events, and clubs that reeked of beer and ambition. Michael, with his explosive dance moves and searing vocals, quickly became the star attraction. He didn't just sing songs, he told stories with every note. In 1968, word reached Berry Gordy, the visionary behind Motown Records. The Jackson 5 auditioned in a cramped room at Motown headquarters, Michael tearing through Smokey Robinson's Who's Loving You with raw, aching emotion. By the song's final note, Gordy knew this was no ordinary group. The hits came like a flood. I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There, all reaching #1 in less than a year. Michael's voice was both childlike and ageless, able to leap from playful joy to aching vulnerability. The world was falling in love, and the boy from Gary was becoming a global sensation. But fame had its cost. Michael's childhood was measured not in playground games, but in recording sessions and rehearsals. There were whispers of Joseph's relentless discipline. Rehearsals that stretched into the night, mistakes met with scolding or worse. Michael would later say that the stage was his safe place, but the road was lonely. By the mid-1970s, the Jackson brothers were restless. Motown's formula was limiting. They wanted creative control to write their own music. In 1975, they left Motown for Epic Records, rebranding as the Jacksons. Jermaine stayed behind, bound by marriage to Berry Gordy's daughter. The split was both professional and deeply personal. It was here that Michael began to step out of the group's shadow. He studied the greats, James Brown, Fred Astaire, Sammy Davis Jr., and fused their styles into something entirely his own. He was no longer just a prodigy. He was becoming an artist. In 1979, working with producer Quincy Jones on the album Off the Wall, Michael finally stepped into the light as a solo act. The record blended funk, disco, and pop into a sound the world had never quite heard before. It sold millions, but for Michael, success was not enough. Not yet. I want to do something that's magical, something that's never been done before. Fade to black. It was 1982, and Michael Jackson was chasing the extraordinary, teaming again with Quincy Jones. He was crafting an album that would shatter every known boundary in pop music. What emerged from the studio was more than a record. It was a cultural earthquake. Its name, Thriller. Released in late November 1982, Thriller was a kaleidoscope of styles: pop, rock, funk, and R&B. Tracks like Beat It and Billie Jean defied genre walls. How the title track brought horror and dance together in a way the world had never seen. It wasn't just an album, it was an event. On March 25th, 1983, during Motown's 25th anniversary special, Michael unveiled the moonwalk. In a single movement, he bent time and gravity. Millions watching knew they had just seen history. By the summer of 1984, Thriller was the best-selling album of all time, a title it holds to this day. Its success was global, from the streets of Tokyo to the plazas of Rio. People tried to moonwalk like Michael. He had become the face of pop culture, a universal language of rhythm and spectacle, but Michael's ambition stretched beyond music. In 1985, he co-wrote We Are the World with Lionel Richie, a charity single that raised millions for famine relief in Africa. It was proof that his influence could rally the world not just to dance, but to care. As the years passed, Michael's appearance began to change. He attributed the transformation to vitiligo, a skin condition, and to reconstructive surgery. The public's fascination grew, sometimes overshadowing his artistry. He was becoming more than a man to some, a myth to others, a mystery. In 1987, Michael returned with Bad. The album produced 5 #1 singles, and the world tour shattered attendance records. On stage, he was untouchable, a force of precision, energy, and magnetism. Off stage, the walls around him grew higher. In 1988, Michael purchased a sprawling property in Santa Barbara County. He named it Neverland after the world where Peter Pan never grew up. It was a sanctuary for him, a place where he could create the childhood he felt he had never truly lived. But in the early 1990s, accusations began to swirl, allegations of child sexual abuse. Michael denied them, calling them lies born from greed. The scandal divided the public, igniting a media storm that would shadow him for the rest of his life. In 1991, Dangerous showcased a harder edge, bending New Jack Swing with his trademark pop. The videos, like Black or White, pushed technology and creativity to their limits. But behind the spectacle, Michael was navigating lawsuits, relentless tabloid scrutiny, and the suffocating weight of fame. By 2005, the allegations had reached their most public, an intense trial. After months in court, Michael was acquitted on all charges, but the years of suspicion had taken a toll on his health, his career, and his spirit. In 2009, Michael prepared for a 50-concert residency in London, a comeback to remind the world who he was. He called it This Is It. But on June 25th, 2009, the world awoke to the unthinkable. Michael Jackson was gone. Cardiac arrest at the age of 50 ended the life of one of the most influential artists in history. Michael Jackson's story is one of light and shadow, a boy from Gary who dreamed in music, and a man who bore the weight of his own legend. His voice, his moves, his vision, they changed music forever. Even now, the echo of his steps can still be heard if you listen closely enough. Long live the king of pop. The stage is dark now. The roar of the crowds has faded, and the king of pop's voice is silent. The official story tells us that on June 25th, 2009, Michael Jackson suffered cardiac arrest brought on by an overdose of the sedative propofol administered by his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray. The world mourned, the headlines blared, and for many that was the end. But for others, it was only the beginning of a different kind of story. In the weeks following his death, strange details began to emerge, inconsistencies in timelines, conflicting witness statements, gaps in medical reports. Some fans pointed to Michael as increasing fears for his safety in the months leading up to his final rehearsals. Others whispered about financial pressures, lawsuits, and powerful interests surrounding the 50 planned This Is It concerts. And then there were the sightings, blurry photos, shaky videos, alleged appearances in faraway places, each one fueling the belief that perhaps Michael hadn't left us at all. The media called them conspiracy theories. His family called for justice. But in the vast global network of fans, the conversation took on a life of its own. Online forums, late-night radio shows, and documentaries began piecing together fragments, the missing ambulance footage, the curious behavior of those closest to him, even cryptic clues they claimed were hidden in his music and performances. It is impossible to know how much of this is truth, how much is myth, and how much is simply the human need to hold on to someone we are not ready to let go of. But in the fog of speculation, one thing is clear. Michael Jackson's story didn't simply end. It transformed into something else, part investigation, part legend, part love letter from those who refused to believe their hero was truly gone. The official records will always tell one version, but there is another world, a shadow world where the ending is still being written. If you want to step into that world, if you want to examine the unanswered questions, the hidden threads, and the possibility that the truth might be stranger than fiction, then stay with us, subscribe, and join us as we open the next chapter, one where Michael's final bow may not have been final at all.